This is gonna hurt. It's time for the Suffering Podcast.
True strength is believing in something without tangible evidence, lacking the control to use your senses to figure out reality. Even the most concrete proof can be swept away in a heartbeat, leaving you filled with doubt and confusion. When you're lost, you become a seeker of truth, being steadfast in the pursuit that will fill the gaps in your heart, becoming that child that just knows and understands that they are loved. There is a unique joy uncovering a purpose, even if the path is filled with obstacles and dangers. Once the journey has been made, you realize that the evidence that you sought was right in front of your face the whole time. I'm Kevin Donaldson, always here with Mike Felice, and welcome to the Suffering Podcast. If you're a fan of overcoming adversity and overcoming suffering, then we're for you, because that's what we do here, and that's the stories that we highlight. So do me a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, please comment, ring the bell so you can get notified of all of our new content, and now you can join. And of course, follow us on all social media so you can find out what we're up to. Tonight's a very special episode. You're going to hang on for this one because we have another returning guest, but this is not a guest that most people are going to see because Adam Burt is in studio tonight from episode 16, April 4th, 2021, in my basement. And I thank you so much. Adam has been one of these men who have impacted my life in ways that he could not possibly fathom. So I thank you for coming in.
Oh, dude, kid me, I'm a groupie. I'm a fan, bro. I'm a fan. So really,
well, you were our first big get. Well, oh my God, we got a retired professional hockey player in. This is going to be great. He played for the Flyers, my team.
Katie, that really sounds pathetic. Hey, but an ex-hockey player coming in was the biggest guest, bro. Come on.
Well, we were brand new.
I know.
But here's the thing. You ruined all of it because none of it, well, there was a little bit about hockey, but most of it was about the suffering of a man of God.
Yeah.
Because you sent that one text to me early on after we had coffee. Do you remember what that text was?
Yeah, man. Just said, I love you and praying for you.
And I got so mad at you, but we're going to get into that. Before we get into anything, let's throw a big shout out to our marquee sponsor. That's Toyota of Hackensack. We don't trust anybody as retired police officers, and we certainly don't trust anybody as podcasters, but we do trust the guys over at Toyota Hackensack. So go to toyotahackensack.com and let them find you a car, but also tell them that the Suffering Podcast sent you. So PA, I don't know if we did this when you were in, and I call Adam PA because he's Pastor Adam to me. He is my pastor from Every Nations New Jersey Church. Best church in the world with the best people, with faces of all different nations, and it's my family. It's my family.
Couldn't say anything better to me, man. I don't want to go to church, but I love being a part of the family. So, man, this is great.
There's been some times throughout the year that I've had to miss church. Either I was traveling or my kids had football games or something, and I missed it. I like physically missed church, which is something unlike I've ever had in my entire life.
And Katie, I don't know if your audience knows this, man, but I remember the first time I invited you to church, and you showed up, and everyone, we were still all, had to be masked up and all this stuff, and I remember, oh my gosh, he showed up, and then I'm looking at you, and the whole time, and you're just poker face the whole time. I cannot read you behind that mask and all that. I'm thinking, does this guy want to kill me or something? Like he just looked mean, man. And then to come find out now we've been walking together all this time. It's just, man, it's so cool.
I was holding in tears. I'm gonna be very blunt and honest with you. I brought my kids with me. They were my get out of jail free card. If this was weird and stuff like this, I'm getting out. And they were my get out of jail free card. But I was crying. My lips were quivering because Kim Frias, the worship leader, she's got the voice of an angel. And something happened to me that day, and my lip was quivering, and I was trying not to cry in front of my kids because men aren't supposed to cry in front of their kids, right?
Man. Yeah.
And I went back the next week to try to replicate it because it was painful, but it was beautiful at the same time. And guess what? I've been able to replicate it every single week. That's why I stand in the back.
That's what I said. The ghost got you, man. The Holy Ghost got you. Look out.
He got me in the best way possible. So, PA, I don't know whether we did this in the first episode, but I take a question from my audience. This week's question comes from Tally43. In your times of doubt, what has brought you back to the path? I think every human being on the planet Earth has had moments of unclarity, of doubt, of misguidance. You're the type of person, and I know you've followed your faith for a very long time, because we're going to talk about the suffering of faith. You followed your faith for a very long time, and playing professional hockey for 14 seasons, I'm sure there were times when it was tested. So what brings you back? If you had a tool, what brings you back?
So, KD, I wish I could say it was just one thing, but when you talk about we talk about faith, right? And faith, quite honestly, faith is just a wrestle with doubt. And so all of us have our times where we wrestle, some more intensely than others. But I know for me, there's multiple things that I turn to. Like obviously for me, the Bible is more than just a good book. To me, it's timeless truth, and I can see God was faithful in the past, and so I look to that. I'll lean into the scriptures, and then quite honestly, man, sometimes I have to lean into other people's faith at time. Where I'm not real strong, but man, but you're still strong in your belief, and I can lean in to men like you to speak life and faith into me. Man, I say this, just that faith it's a team sport, man. It's not like golf or tennis where it's just kind of use mano a mano, but no, we have other brothers that we walk through, and it was like that on the ice as well. That like sometimes you need other brothers to pick you up. Sometimes you need a kick in the pants, and sometimes you need a pat on the back, and that's what church is to me. I'll use the word like family, or we're a team and things like that, and that's kind of where I find my faith in seasons of doubt. And I'll use one more as well. I think it's always important that we have kind of mentors and men in our life that are just a little bit further along than we are. And our mutual friend, Pastor Ron Lewis,
Wonderful man.
he was that to me. He's just to me, he just exudes faith, but that doesn't mean it's always been easy. Like he put his 23-year-old son in the ground, man.
And he was in here 2 years ago, and he's talking about his divorce and how much that crushed him as a pastor. Pastors aren't supposed to get divorced. You guys live with God. You're not supposed to get divorced. But no, he's just a man, and that vulnerability is actually what draws me closer to people like him.
Yeah.
That pain, because then I have something I can relate to.
Yeah, 100%. I'll even share, I'm sure we've all heard of Rick Warren. He's the author of The Purpose-Driven Life and whatnot, but he's like the rock star of pastors. He's got like 40,000 people in his church, and, so he was the guy, and he was actually doing a seminar for pastors. And so pastors are all a bunch of groupies, kind of like, oh, wow, we could see Rick Warren. And it's funny, he starts rattling off all his kind of everything he's done. Man, I've sold over 1 million books. My church is 40,000, all this stuff. And then he says, do you feel that? He says, do you feel how distant I feel from you? And he says, now what if I was to tell you if my youngest son took a gun and took his own life? He goes, and then it was just silence. And he says, do you feel that? He says, do you feel how close we are? Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how walking through suffering with one another, how it just knits us together, man. So we desperately need people.
I think you said it the best, where you impress people with your success, but you connect through your vulnerabilities.
Great. Yeah.
That's there's a little word to I steal a lot of stuff from you. I do. I steal a lot of material from you, but I always come up to you and be a gentleman and say, hey, PA, I stole that stuff from you. I just want to let you know. But you'll turn around and say, well, I stole it from this
100%. I give them credit the first time, and then after that, it's mine.
So for me, it's taken me a long time to get here. I am a firm believer that faith takes work. I think it's James 2:18, where faith without work is dead. All right, so in times of doubt, in times of trouble for me, I will get to work. It's part of my DNA in order to work. And the more I work, the better I feel, and I can get through that sticky spot. But here's what I've learned over that time, because I would do that over and over again, and things really wouldn't change for me. So it's more than just work. I had to come to a place where I realized that every trouble and every trial that I have is preparing me for something.
Great.
If I'm financially strapped, well, that's because I'm not ready to have enough money to where I go wild. I think about these kids, and you're the chaplain for the New York Jets, as you call them, God's team, but at least they're green, so we'll go there. And I think about these young kids in college getting this NIL money, and I worry for them and I pray for them, because can you imagine? Well, you can imagine it, being 18 years old, 19 years old, and being a millionaire. Me personally, at 18 or 19 years old, I'd be dead in a year. I'd be dead in a year. And I came to this conclusion. I was doing a speaking engagement on a Native American tribal land. And I asked the chief of the tribe, I'm out to dinner with him. I said, yeah, but you have the casinos so that everybody's sort of getting paid. And he goes, it turned out to be the worst thing possible.
Wow.
Because you have people who are dirt poor, who most of them have alcohol problems or some form of drug problem or domestic problems, and then infuse a ton of money. We had overdoses that were off the charts. We had people dying, going on benders because all of a sudden, because you weren't spiritually ready to have that amount of money. Just like these kids aren't spiritually ready. So in those times of trouble, in those times of doubt, you're being prepared for something. You know, this is a season of your life that is preparing you for something greater. It's making you spiritually sound, spiritually responsible for money, good relationships, all these different things. You just have to endure that season. And that's the tough part. But if you know that you're being prepared, I can personally take the training if I know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. And that's how I've turned to view it. So that's my answer to that one. Tally, thank you so much for sending that question in. Keep sending in your questions, and we will try to get them on the air. So, Pastor Adam, I've been trying to get you back in here, and it took you writing a book, the longest game, to get you back in here. Thank you again for not only coming in here tonight, but for being a great mentor and a guide for me.
Oh, bro, you're too kind. Hey, the only reason that book got written is because I saw you wrote your book, and I'm like, man, I got to get it in gear, man. So you whipped that thing out in no time.
So did you.
Yeah.
So did you. But I've had an opportunity to read the book, and I know it's centered around one of the games that you played in professional hockey when you were playing with the Flyers. Thank you very much. And it's an amazing walk through faith with a backdrop of one of these historic events. And I think that's the mark of any good book. It's your personal take inside the backdrop of a historical event. Now, early on, let's talk about your faith a little bit. And I know we talked about this on episode 16 a long time ago, but I want to talk about your come to faith. You were raised Catholic, correct?
I was, so the Lord be with you.
You were raised Catholic, but what brought you to, I guess, non-denominational Christian?
Yeah. So I will say this. I've always had some kind of curiosity about God, even from a young age. So I credit that nothing but to the Lord, kind of like calling me to himself type thing. But so I went to Catholic school, and I just, and then this is nothing, and please hear me, whoever, like for all my God-fearing Catholics, man, God loves you, and man, I'm just 100% for you. But for me, as a young kid, like 12 years old, going to Catholic school, and kind of we did a lot of ritual and stuff like that. And I just thought, well, God, if you like that, I'm cool with it. You're God, and you can kill me, so I'll do what you want me to do. It just felt like there should be more, and so like I remember my parents divorced when I was about 12 years old, and so the first time I met my now stepdad is he's moving my mom out of the house. You're like, what in the world's going on? So kind of world's on fire, and my mom, she didn't get custody of us kids, which was kind of a rare thing back in the day. So she's searching for something, and she was a agnostic at best. She really didn't have a faith, and my dad was just a kind of a nominal Catholic at the time. And so my mom's searching, and she found herself drawn to this church. It was a non-denominational, Bible-believing, but man, it was over the top, holy rollers. But they did proclaim the gospel, man. And that's the idea that Christ died for your sins. He rose again. Man, he offers you forgiveness of sin and eternal life through his son, Jesus. And so man, she heard the gospel. Man, she got, I'll use the term born again, and so she got Jesus, and she wanted the same for her kids. So KD, I'm 12 years old. I found out years later it was a setup. She invited me to this church, and they were showing a movie about the end of the world, man. Fire and brimstone. You either get the mark of the beast, or man, it was like turn or burn. And for whatever reason, man, I heard that. I'm like 12 years old, scared the crap out of me. But I'm also like, he says, hey, do you want to go to hell, or do you want to go to heaven with mom and dad type thing? You know what? But for me, man, it was just different. Went up to the front, prayed a prayer, and I've never been the same since.
So it's funny because my voice, as far as my faith has gone, has become louder in recent weeks. Okay, because of certain events in my life, good events in my life, and I I want to bring, especially people I care about, to faith for this reason. It's a selfish reason, because I care about them so much that I want to see them again.
Yeah, man.
You know, I really do want to see them again. But you talked about walking into church with your mother, and you prepped me for this when I came to your church. You might see some hands in the air. And I've used that when I've brought other people into the church. You might see some hands in the air. It's going to be a little odd. What did you think about that when you first walked into that church?
Oh man, I was like, get me out of here a few times, but I was like, hey, my mom's here, and so shit, it's got to be okay. And so I've always had like, there's always been people that have been kind of anchored other people. You're like, well, this dude's normal, so if he's says it's okay, so that's kind of what got me through it. But I do prep people.
Yeah, you prep me, and when I first walked in, I'll be very honest with you. I'm like, well, I remember turning to my son Patrick, going, what the hell is this stuff going on? And then when I went back, I saw it again, and when I went back, I saw it again, and my perception changed of it. Where at first I thought it was weird because it was foreign to me. Then I started changing my perspective, like, God, what are they feeling to put their hands in the air and not care who's looking?
So Katie, so I'm the chaplain for the Jets, right? Have you been to a Jet game?
Yes.
Have you seen these
Thanks
people?
to you.
Body paint,
Mm-hmm.
just losing their mind. We got a guy who dresses up like a fireman
Yeah.
every weekend. You know what I mean?
Who feels marginalized now, by the way. I saw an article about him.
Which is so funny. And yet it's odd, that God has radically saved your life. He says, man, I'm going to forgive you of your sins and all that. And to not like lose your mind a little bit, there's got to be something wrong, like the wires aren't touching. So it's kind of funny which one is more absurd. You go to a football game or, we're celebrating who's celebrating the more important thing.
Sports fans in general, you will never see a bigger faith-based crowd. Their faith may be misdirected, okay, where they put their faith in a sports team rather than where it should be. But the faith is there. And they have the strong Jets fans, Jets fans have my buddy, Bobby, and I'll introduce you to Bobby. He's probably one of the biggest Jet fans that I know. And this year didn't work out so well for the Jets. And, he'll say, he speaks his mind, right? He'll say what he needs to say about the Jets. But guess what? Next year, he'll start talking about, he'll have that faith that is renewed each season to say, this is going to be the year.
This is going to be the year, man.
So it's amazing that faith and football, faith and sports really go hand in hand. And I think that's what drew me to you, where you came in guerrilla style as a sports guy, and we've worked out together, and you're a workout guy, and you hit all the markers for me where I can talk to this guy. And then you hit me with this other stuff. I'm like, well, if I have this in common with him and this in common with him, do I have this in common with him?
Wow. You totally hit on, honestly, I was just like you that way, in that it was funny as a young man growing up, I just saw all the Christian guys, they just look so soft to me. And I just like kind of effeminate and all that. I was just like, I couldn't. And then when I finally saw some people with faith on them, they weren't kind of embarrassed or sheepish, about, man, like loving God and doing stuff like that, where I was like, that dude's got might on him. I can do that.
Yeah.
Right. And so I needed someone like to go before me. And I go, okay, I can. They had this group of guys called the Power Team. I don't know if you ever heard of these guys.
No.
They're just like ex football players, collegiate, but then they'll do all these feats of strength, like bust crap and do stuff. And I remember as a teenager, I'm seeing that stuff. I'm like, now that's cool. And then they just share their testimony, man, share how they came to know God. But just like you needed it, I needed the exact same thing.
So I saw something recently. There's two guys up on stage. One guy is jacked. I mean, this guy, he's got muscles on top of muscles. He's bodybuilder. He's in shape. You can tell his diet's dialed in. And then there's so he's black, and then there's a white guy up there, and he goes, I forget what the guy is. Let's say Steve and I go to the same gym. That's what he says. And he takes off his shirt, and he's got a tank top on just like Steve. And he goes, Steve and I go to the same gym. We use the same plates, different denominations. We work out the same. Only problem is when I get out of the gym, I will go have a hamburger or something because I earned it with the stuff that I have in the gym. Where Steve takes the gym with him. I'm not going to have that hamburger because I worked out so hard. And I think that's a lot to do with faith. Some people will go to church and then be able and do all this bad stuff on the side because they went to church. And then you have those other people where this is the example that I try to live by. I don't succeed all the time, but I bring church with me. And I don't do bad because of church.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the basis of faith.
Yeah, man.
The key component to any law enforcement officer being the best version of themselves is through education. Sherry Alsop is a leader in providing that education to police agencies, preparing them for the all too frequent dealings with sexual assault victims.
You've seen Sherry on episode 169 of the Suffering Podcast. She survived incest and almost daily sexual assault, so she comes from a place of experience and true understanding.
Sherry has the intelligence, commitment, and compassion to open the eyes of those on the front lines, while providing the tools to effectively deal with a difficult situation. Sherry's instruction comes from experience and multiple certifications.
Training with Sherry will offer on-site training, customized schedules, specialized instruction tailored from a victim's perspective.
You are going to hear Sherry's heart-wrenching but inspiring survivor story. Learn proprietary trauma-informed training techniques. Uncovered victim-centered interview methods while earning continuing education credits according to your state guidelines. To be the best, you must learn from the best. Let Sherry also guide you through the delicate cases of sexual assault from a victim's point of view.
Be a source of comfort to those victims affected by these traumatic experiences while producing a solid investigation and uncovering details that often go unnoticed.
To find out more or to contact Sherry Alsop, go to sherryalsop.com. That's SherryAllsup.com.
We're not like a bunch of people that say we got it all together and do stuff, but what we do is we know we've been forgiven of so much. And now out of the overflow of that, man, now we go live our life in a way that kind of says, God, thank you. God, thank you for everything that you've purchased for me. How absurd would it be, is God gives his son for us, dies for your sins. But then and then afterwards we're like, okay, that was great. And then you just go and forget you and you go live like you want to do. It doesn't make sense. A heart of gratitude, it's going to you're going to want to do something to be a blessing back to the Lord,
I think too many people are looking for reconciliation within themselves with historical Bible and faith Bible. Okay, they are the same thing, but people see them as very opposite. They become Thomas, where they need to see proof of Jesus after the resurrection in order to be a true believer. They also have to realize that I don't remember what I did last week. You expect the human race to remember what happened 2,000 years ago down to the letter? I don't think it's a realistic goal, but as science, here's the cool thing, as science gets more and more advanced, they're starting to prove some of these things. Shroud of Turin was just verified as being from the time of Jesus. In all these different places, they think they found where Sodom and Gomorrah was. They think they know, and all these things are coming into play. They think they believe they know where Noah's Ark came to rest on top of Mount Ararat. So all these different things are starting to line up, and the evidence is right in front of most people, and most people are blind to it.
Yeah.
But they don't want to see. And I think that comes from their hearts have been so hardened that even though it's right in front of their face, they can't see.
And I think there's some of it too. And listen, man, we're just all human in that too. Man, if the book is right, then that means, he's Lord and you got to do what he says. And hey, man, I want to do what I want to do type of thing. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the
there's
spiritual
a little bit
people.
of that.
That's spiritual people.
Yeah. But I don't want the Bible to be, there's a lot of people that don't want it to be true just for that reason. Cause then I got to do what it says, And so there's a lot of, I think if you really were to go on a journey, the Bible, there's no other piece of literature or anything that even comes close to standing up to the veracity and the historicity of the Bible. There's nothing that comes close to it.
I think Christianity lends itself to the atheist. All right. So one of the people who you quote all the time, C.S. Lewis, atheist, right? Came to know Jesus. Mm-hmm. Jordan Peterson, who I'm a big fan of Jordan Peterson. And we've been talking about this for years where, hey, the Lord's pulling on him. The Lord's pulling on him. He is now a huge believer. Russell Brand, who was Mr. Mystic and Mr. He came to Jesus. Joe Rogan, who is Mr. I want to do whatever the hell I want to do. He's getting pulled.
Yeah.
He's getting pulled. He said something on a show the other day, and I just saw the clip of it where he said, even if you're not a Christian, you should live like a Christian, which means with those good morals and good values and try to do the right thing and be a servant and all the good things that Christianity brings. So it's funny how all these heavy-duty, very intelligent atheist. The smartest man in the world has an IQ of 220. He looks like a normal average. He looks like Jimmy Flanagan,
Mm-hmm.
all right, the deacon of the past deacon of our church. He looks like him, and he talks about God. He goes, God has to exist, and here's why. And he scientifically breaks this stuff down, and you're like, oh my God, this is the smartest man in the world.
Yeah.
So there's something there. If somebody's smarter than me and they're leading me in this direction, there's got to be something to it. But you had a very difficult upbringing because you're this all-star hockey player. You're getting offers to come play in Canada. You're getting all these different, it's a lot of noise, and there's a lot of responsibility, and there's a lot of bad paths you can go down with, your path to professional hockey. How did you reconcile your faith while being in I know some professional athletes who are very good, but I also know some who are very, very bad because all the temptations are out there. How did you do that, playing 14 years in the NHL, which is no easy feat, and still maintain that faith?
Yeah, yeah. So I moved away from home at 16 to go up to Ontario, Canada to go play to try and make it pro. And how many know, like, at 16, if you move away at 16, bro, you can get in a lot of trouble. And so, but I was a Jesus guy, right? I'd given my heart to the Lord. I said, Lord, I want to follow you and that. But it was kind of one of those, hey man, Lord, you can have most of me, but I still want to go out, party, get laid on the weekends, go get drunk and do stuff on the weekends. And then, I'll say I'm sorry and we'll just redo it. And so I was the halfway guy. So I don't know if you've ever done that. And I want to tell you, if that's anyone out there that you're the halfway Christian, man, don't do it. Man, don't. You're a crappy sinner, and you're not a good Christian, right?
You
Don't be
can't
the
swim
halfway
with
guy.
one foot in the water.
There you go, man. Yeah, don't be the halfway guy. And so, but I was, and so here's what's amazing. So my draft year, I think it was '87, in Detroit, and I was rated to go 12th overall in the NHL. So first round draft choice. Lived my whole life for this moment. But once again, remember, I'm the halfway guy, and it's funny how it translates and spills over into your everyday life. So my game was up and down, up and down, up and down that year. But I was still rated to go 12th overall. 12th overall pick comes. It was the St. Louis Blues, and their general manager gets up. And they said the St. Louis Blues select from the North Bay Centennials. That's my team. I'm getting ready to get up, man, my family and everybody. And they said Keith Osborne, who was a teammate of mine, got chosen. And KD, I got passed over again and again and again. I didn't get drafted till late in the second round. I think it was 39th overall. And I remember that day, I was like, God, I'm done being the halfway guy, man, because I am screwing up my life. And I was like, I just put all my chips in right there, Joe Louis Arena in Detroit. And it's like, I'm just going all in with you, and let's see what happens. And I've never looked back ever since then. And I've not had a day that I regretted it.
So it's amazing to me because, on the road, the temptations seem to flock to the notoriety of professional athletes. I've seen this firsthand with the Phillies, with the Eagles. When I was a kid, I would see, God, the women that would hang around these places I would go where these guys was just shocking to me. I was like, oh my gosh, and even being at the Jets facility when we went there for chapel, the food, all these different temptations are around, and everything is just sort of handed to so it becomes real easy. How you denied yourself that is a testament to your faith, because that stuff is right there and it's ripe for you to take. While you're watching the guy next to you do whatever the heck he wants to do.
Yeah.
Drink, have multiple affairs, play around on their spouse, do all that bad stuff.
Yeah. So here it's so great, man, because I'm looking across the table at you. You're a living example of this to me. Is you know what? Like they tell you, like just so you don't think I'm a wimp, man. I do the hunting in my home, and hunting is going to Costco, and I bring home food for my people, right? That's what I do. Just modern day hunting. But the reality is, they always tell you what, don't go to the grocery store hungry.
Yeah.
And but you know what? In my life, I've not been hungry. You know what I'm saying? Like that. There's been something filled inside of me. They use this, the God-sized hole. that, man, there's things that maybe at one time tempted me, but I'm good on the inside, man. If I'm good in here, then that those things, man, their grasps aren't there. From sleeping around to doing all the other kind of stuff. And hey, I'm sure it's fun, but you know what? It's fun for a minute, right? And then afterwards, there's a price to pay for all of it. And so I've seen teammates and stuff like that. Man, it was great. It was a real blast on the road, for one night. But after that, then when it sees what had happened to your family and things like that, to me, I wasn't giving up anything. I was gaining everything by living out my faith, and having it be authentic and real. I don't feel like I was giving up anything.
I have a thing inside of me where I feel like I've been hungry my whole life. It's the first time in my life I don't feel hungry, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
It's the first time in my life that I actually feel satiated and I feel full. And faith has a lot to do with that feeling inside of me. And it's an odd place and it's an unfamiliar place to me, but it's a very comforting place.
Yeah.
I speak a lot about primary identity. The whole concept that you speak about, where your primary identity needs to be totally unshakable, and then everything else you are is underneath that primary identity. You're a husband, you're a father, you're a coach, you're a pastor, you're, whatever it may be. And it took me, I used to put my weight into my primary identity in the wrong thing, because all that stuff crumbled and went away. And then I was just left out in the open. I did it. Me and Mike did it as a cop. I put everything into being a cop. And then one day I went to work and the next day I didn't. So now what? Now I'm done. So I think that has a lot to do with me being fed and full and not content, because I know there's always more work to do, but sustained, I think, is the right word.
Yeah. There's an old cliche, and even if you're not a Christian, you probably heard this one. Guys got it tattooed on their arm. I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. But it really is that the big idea, what they're saying in that context is, I can do anything in Christ. And the guy who said that is the Apostle Paul, and he's like, man, I can be rich or I can be poor. I can be full or I can be hungry. I can do all things through Christ. In other words, as long as I'm good on the inside of here. And here's what's funny, like you and I, we get a front row seat to certain people, like, these NFL players take for granted, or for example. So we've all heard of Tom Terrific, right? And for years, been a thorn in my flesh as the Jets chaplain, right? But really, when you look at this guy, KD, I mean, so he's how many Super Bowls? 6?
I think he's 6, because he needs 2 hands.
Two hands for all the rings, right?
Yeah.
So 6-time Super Bowl champ. I don't know how many times he was MVP. He was making over hundreds of millions of dollars, and he was married to a Victoria's Secret model, right? As a dude, I'm like, I can't think of one other thing that's every guy's dream. And yet, what does he say? Like, after winning an MVP in a Super Bowl, he says, surely this can't be all there is. Like, that should be terrifying to every man to know, your perfect life that you're dreaming of, dude, it's not satisfying. And yet, I've seen your life. You found something, man. You found something.
Well, you take somebody like Tom Brady, take away his looks, take away his talent, take away his money, and we're basically the same person, me and him. Listen, same person.
Bro, you could bench way more than
him. But then I've had the opportunity through you to meet somebody, say, like Tony Adams, okay, the safety for the Jets. Tony Adams has got it. Like he and Ty Johnson, he was another one. They got it, okay, because while they are so young, I'm listening to their voice and they're speaking loudly about their faith and how close they are in their faith. And I'm like, oh, you got it. Hang on to that, because that's going to serve you well. Yeah. And, I think when Tony was at our church, I went up to him afterwards. I'm like, yeah, you got it. Same way Pastor Shino Prater has it. They just have something in them. It's like a light. And again, I said this the other day on a post, that light reflects light, darkness absorbs it. So if you're a dark person, you're going to absorb all that positivity into you. Somebody like Tony is pure light, and he's just reflecting light on others. You feel good when you're around him. Yeah. So I enjoy that stuff. Then sometime before you got drafted, did you meet Susan? your wife?
Yeah, we were high school sweethearts. She was digging on me, so.
Ah,
Yeah.
listen.
Can we cut that out?
When she found out how close you were, or at this time when you met her, were you half in, half out?
So I was, but to her, it looked like I was a crazy Jesus person, like all in, you know what I'm saying? And so even for her, it was different because she's coming from, very nominal kind of just going to church once a year type thing or whatever, no relationship with the Lord. And then she developed her relation walk with the Lord. But it was funny when we just got married, though, we had. I was with the Hartford Whalers, and we had training camp in Lake Placid, New York. So we're there. Lake Placid's small, but they had this little beat reporter was going to do an article because he found out I was a Christian, which like it's easier to find a Oompa Loompa or something like that in the NHL than it is a Christian guy. So he was like, "What in the world?" So he did this article, and then Katie, you'll get a kick out of this. At the end of the article, it says, "Oh, and maybe one day he'll be a pastor." And my wife read the article. She says, "I will never, ever be married to a pastor." Surprise.
Yeah.
So you want to make God laugh? Tell him your plans,
Well,
So,
I especially appreciate the picture of your wedding that you showed one day in your white tuxedo and your
shoot
mullet.
the man from Glad.
Oh,
right?
that was fantastic. It was like if somebody drew a picture of what the '80s and late '80s and early '90s was. That's Adam. That's Adam. So, what did she think? Like, because that could potentially turn some people away. For instance, at the time, if your wife was you were in love with her, I understand this. If she said, "Listen, I love you. I want to be with you. You gotta chill a little bit with the Jesus stuff." Would you at the time have done that?
I would like to think I wouldn't, just because here's what I truly believe with all my heart, mind, soul, and strength. It's got to go Jesus, and then spouse, kids. And that's how it flows in best. And here's what I would challenge people. Even if you're like a feminist or something that you can at times you can read the Bible and it sounds like what man's the head, or stuff can sound ridiculous in today's culture. But here's what I promise you: when you see it lived out, a man that says that, so the on the man that God says, the husband, you're to lay down your life for your wife and for your kids. That means you go last, you serve your family, you provide, you protect, you do all these things. And I just don't know a woman that wouldn't go, "Oh, I don't want that." You know what I'm saying? And so when you see it played out, it's really just a beautiful thing. Now the problem is there's a lot of people that are kind of wearing the moniker, the label of Christian, and then just say, "Hey, you serve me, make much of me," and do stuff like that. And it's anti what the Bible or what Jesus would have us to do.
Now, I want to do something a little bit different here. Instead of getting into your hockey career, because I want to save that for last, because there's a very important game that I want to speak about. Let's fast forward to, I think you were with Carolina, was it? You meet this guy, Pastor Ron Lewis, and he draws you in. I mean, how does he do this? Number one,
Yeah.
how does he call up an NHL hockey player and say, "Hey, I'd like to meet you"?
So backdrop to that story then, Katie, so people can have a little context, was so I was playing in Carolina for the Hurricanes. Once again, like I said, the Hurricanes that year, we were an odd team in that, get this, we had 5 Christian guys on the team, which was unheard of. And so I got the guys together for a Bible study, and we're going to have a group of people come in and kind of lead the Bible study for us. It was a Christian athletic ministry, so we're going to do that. So I don't know if you've ever experienced this, Katie, but when you try to step out for the Lord, like all hell's going to break loose. And so it did in my home. Kids blowing up. The house is a mess. My wife and I are fighting. If Christians did such things, it was just all this stress and all that.
Every Wednesday night when I go to record,
Bro. And I get on my knees, and I'm having a frank talk with the Lord. I'm like, "Lord, you want me to do this? You better make some things happen here right now." And I wish he always answered prayer like this. I literally, bro, I got a phone call from this guy, Ron Lewis. Didn't know who he was. I don't know how he got my number. And he's like, "Adam, you don't know me. I'm going to be one of the pastors coming tonight." He says, "Is there anything I can do to serve you?" And like, usually, you want to be polite. "Oh, no, 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 no." I'm like, I was so stressed out. I'm like, "Yeah, bro, you can go to the airport, pick up these people, and then I want you to go do this." I'm ordering this guy all around like this. And all he did was just lovingly served me. And we got through that night, and that just spoke volume. I'm like, who is this guy that would just serve a stranger like that, you know?
He sat across from me in a Starbucks in Caldwell, New Jersey. That's who does that.
Yeah.
Because whatever pastor, I'm humbled in the fact that you saw enough in me to bring me where I need to be. All right. So Pastor Ron, I think I would have to believe that he did the same for you.
Oh, yeah.
He saw something, whatever and I'd love to know whatever that was that he saw in you, and I'd love to know what you saw in me. But he saw something in you to say, this guy's a little special. This guy's got something special. And he brings you in, and was that your start down the journey to becoming this pastoral life?
Yeah, 100% is, you know, the Bible talks a lot about discipleship, which is no different, man. We talk about mentorship and things like that. That's all it is. And for whatever reason, I'm the same as you, Katie, because I'm like, why does this guy like me even? You know what I'm saying? I'm just having all this wondering why. And so he was just slowly kind of meet me regularly for coffee, kind of doing little Bible studies here and there. And then he would get me out of my comfort zone. So, which is, it's so ironic. I can play in front of 20,000 people. I'm terrified to speak in front of 5 people, you know, but he would make me go to the campuses in Carolina, UNC, NC State. And he would go and he's like, come on, you're going to share your testimony. And so, bro, I remember one time we went to NC State and we're there, and I'm thinking Ron's going to do all the preaching and I'm just going to be the hockey guy. I'll wave and sign some autographs. Well, bro, he calls me up and he's like, Adam's going to tell you about God and the Holy Spirit. I'm like, what in the world? I'm not going to do that, right? He calls me up. So I'm just blah, blah, blah my way through it, you know. And then they asked if someone wants to get prayed for to come up, Adam's going to pray for you. I'm like, dude, I don't know what I'm doing. Why are you doing this? And so we did it. And then here was the kicker, KD. Afterwards, we go to the car. And so we get down in the car, and Pastor Ron's got his hands together like this. And he says, Adam, open up your hands like this. I'm thinking this is some spiritual thing. He's like, so I open up my hands like that. And then he takes some Purell and scoots it in there. He says, we got to wipe the fellowship off now. And we just crack up to this day about that one. But it was just taking me, you know, slowly. And it was awkward and it was clumsy. But more and more, you started getting those reps in, and then it became easier and easier.
He did the same thing to me when he was in here. So I connected through Pastor Ron. He came and spoke at the church, and I liked the guy. I really did like the guy. There's something about him. Maybe it's a Southern draw. And he comes in here, and his book had just come out, Miracles in Manhattan. Now, in preparation for him, I read the book. Thank God I read the book. And I lead him with a question. I think the question was, you know, it's a pretty interesting story how you met your wife. And he goes, well, why don't you tell me? And I'm looking at him like, well, this is my show. And you just really put me on the spot. Thank God I had an answer.
That's great, man.
And that's what he did. He forced my hand on it. And I know it was a test. I know it was a test to see if I was real or if I was full of crap. And oh God, thank God. Thank God I was able to answer it. But that's funny. He did that because he did the same thing to me.
Yeah, bro. And then I saw that on you, man. I'm just like, right away, I already know. I'm like, this is a guy. He's a leader of men, and you, man, you hate it, but like you're like I said, when I look at you, I was like, man, this dude looks like a badass dude, you know. But having said that, champ, you're ripped on the outside, but dude, you got a soft heart on the inside, man. That's a rare combination, you know. And so to me, that's a secret weapon. And so then I had no idea you're going to reach so many people like you are in this thing, man.
It's kind of a strange world. So there was recently something in church, and this is the beauty of church. One of our members recently lost their sister. She recently lost her sister, and she came in, and I hadn't seen her in a couple weeks, and she's telling me she looks like she dropped about 20 pounds, and I could see the stress on her face. So during service, and I'm going around, I'm doing all these different things during service. I'm doing this, that. And I see her over there, and I walk up behind her, and I put my hand on her shoulder. And I don't know why I put my hand on her shoulder. And she turns around, and she gives me this big, giant hug with tears in her eyes. And I was like, wow. Like, that's the power of that family. And whether you're at Every Nation's, of course, I want everybody to fill our church because I truly believe in it. But that's the power of the true community that you created. Like, that's what church is supposed to be. That's what faith is supposed to be. You're building bonds of all those people, and that's what you've built there in Morris Plains, New Jersey.
Yeah. The church, it's not a building, it's not a service, it's a people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, that's you couldn't say anything any better to me, man. Because like I said, I don't want to give my life to doing a Sunday sermon and then I'll see you next week, But I want to do life with other people, man. And so that's what I feel like we got a little slice of that.
Here's my greatest gift as coming to your church. And I've said this a couple different times. So I was coming to the church for about a year solid. And every day before I left, I would ask my family, I'd say, hey, do you want to come to church? My 2 boys and my wife, I'd say, hey, you want to come to church? No, I want to sleep in. No, I want to do this. I want to do this. And one day my oldest Patrick comes to me and says, hey, Dad, you going to church? I said, of course I'm going to church. He goes, you mind if I come with you? I was like, of course you can come with me. And then for the next 6 months, that was Patrick and my thing, like just to go to church together. And then sure enough, my youngest, Jimmy, says, hey, Dad, you going to church on Sunday? Same thing. So my greatest victory is bringing my kids to Jesus and bringing them there by their own free will. I don't force them to come. I've never forced them to come. I teach them how I serve. Hopefully they find their own way. And the way I serve is to actually serve and do things. And they do the same thing. They set up hospitality. They do all this stuff. And that is my proudest moment in the church.
Dude, it's so great. And it shows you like the power of a father. I know, and it can be used for good or evil, and a lot of us have had maybe some jacked up dads but yet, when it's used for good, I'm trying to recall the stats. So these aren't exact numbers, but it is this big a discrepancy when a father is devout and like follows Christ. Man, the kids they'll follow in the dad's footsteps like 93% of the time. When a mom is devout, they'll only follow like 47% of the time. It just shows you that there's just a dramatic increase where, man, might not do what you say, but they're gonna do what you do. And so they're watching you. And so, man, I just want to say, man, well done. Because, man, your boys are leaning in.
It's my greatest victory. And because of that, and Patrick's so cute. He brings his girlfriend every once in a while who I had him prep his girlfriend in the same way that you prep me. You're going to see some hands in the air. It's going to look a little freaky. Just roll with it. It's not as bad as you think it is. And she likes it. Like the first time she said, well, there's a little, and then the next time she's like, I really like it. But here's how good, when you get up there, your faith bleeds through. My youngest son, Jimmy, who should be in the youth ministry, which, Luca Raza goes and talks to all the guys, and he doesn't want to go. Do you know that Jimmy doesn't want to go to the youth? My youngest son loves to hear the word. He loves to hear, he loves to hear Kim sing. Yeah. He likes to hear the word, which I always found interesting. At 12 years old, I don't even know if that's appropriate to do, to hear the words. Because some of the stuff you get into is a little, it's not wrong. It's just, it could be a little controversial, Yeah. I don't know whether that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Did you find out with your kids? Like, did you bring your kids to the church?
Yeah, and I'm like, however they want to lean in. I think here's what the cool thing is, man, like the Bible talks about that we're fearfully and wonderfully made, that God kind of designed you. You're not like some cosmic accident, but your personality. Having 2 boys, isn't it crazy? Man, they're from the same mom and dad, and how, man, they can be so totally different. I got 2 daughters, man, just night and day. But so they have their own little souls and leanings and stuff. And I think it's our job as parents, how did God wire them? And then we start training them in that way. And that's why I think you're doing a great job, man. If I seen Jimmy in worship too, he really has got that worship thing in him where he comes alive and all that. So, man, God made him that way. Well, I don't want to hear you sing.
No, you don't want to hear me sing. I'm not a good singer. But I remember, and I really want to get to this book here. At the end of service, you asked whoever wants to receive Jesus, everybody with close your eyes, put your head down, and just raise your hand. And, well, I peeked. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, God. Listen, I peeked. I had to look over at my 12-year-old over there, and his head's down, his eyes are closed, and both his hands are in the air. So those weird things that I thought walking in there, I'm watching my kids do the same thing, not prompted, not told to do it. They're doing it of their own volition, and they found their own way. And what a beautiful thing, because when I was little, I was made to go to church, and I disliked it, and I hated the ritual like we were talking about earlier. I didn't find anything in it. And then I watched people try to run everybody over, trying to get out of the parking lot at the end of service. Yeah. So I'm grateful for everything. But let's go back to your hockey career. And we're kind of doing it mishmash here, but there was a reason why. You had the opportunity, not only the second and a half that you're in the Mighty Ducks movie, so we can't forget that one, but you had the opportunity to play in the longest game in NHL history and decided to put it down in a book. So you got to tell me what that game meant to you.
Yeah. So it was funny. That was one of the impetus too for writing the book. Probably last year at the NHL, I saw some teams almost are taking our record for the longest game. I'm like, I got to write this book before someone beats our record, you know? So, but it was pretty interesting, you know. So I was with the Philadelphia Flyers, and I didn't realize at the time but the team was stacked with Hall of Famers, you know, all-stars, all this. And we were in first place, you know, at the end of the season, and we rolled through the Buffalo Sabres, were our first round opponents, and then we were playing our in-state rivals, the Pittsburgh Penguins. This is back in 2000.
So Mario Lemieux?
NHL playoffs. So Mario wasn't there, but they had Yager and you know, a few other guys, and but we were heavily favored. And then, but they took the first two games off our home ice, and so we were down 0-2. And man, you know, I don't know if you've ever, you know, I know you know Philly fans.
Was that the Spectrum? Were you in the Spectrum?
No, not the Spectrum. So we were at and it's so appropriate. It was the FU Center when I was there, so appropriate for Philly.
Yeah, that's about right. That's about right.
The Suffering Podcast welcomes our newest sponsor, Keto Revive. Ketamine infusions that are personalized, accessible, and holistic. Proven treatments for post-traumatic stress, depression, anxiety, chronic pain, neuropathic pain, and so much more. Keto Revive is physician-operated with customized treatments tailored to you and an outstanding support system. Keto Revive offers first responder special discounts. So try something new. Proven treatments. Located in Wyckoff, New Jersey. To find out more, visit Keto Revive at ketorevive.com. Let's start healing today.
We went back to Pittsburgh reeling, and then game 3 we won in overtime. So it was really, you know, boost. We're back in the series, and then nothing could have prepared me for game 4 in Pittsburgh. So the game started at 7:30 at night, and it ended at 2:35 in the morning. Man,
Wow.
it was. We played, Kevin, almost 3 complete games. So we played almost 9 periods, and so our locker room looked more like a MASH room, you know, emergency room. Guys are on IV and whatnot. And I always tell the story. Guys got hungry like at about 1 a.m. So our trainer called a pizza parlor, you know, and so this dude's thinking he's delivering to a frat party at 1 a.m. and instead it's an NHL hockey game, man, and we're just all eating pie in between. But I'll never forget it. Just kind of multiple things. I wish I could say, man, I was just like, oh, you know, I got this or whatever. Dude, I was scared. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be the guy to screw up, because you could feel the weight of how epic this game was. And in fact, during the 4th overtime, I believe it was, I got a penalty to put us down a man. So I did what every Christian would do, man. As I'm skating in the penalty box, I'm cutting a deal with the Lord. I'm like, please, God, if you get me out of this, I will give you more money. I will do, you know what I'm saying? So, and by
Bargaining
God's
chips,
grace,
yeah.
exactly. By God's grace, I got out of it, man. And then at 2:30 in the morning, our Keith Primo came streaking down the wing, let a shot go, and man, it hit the crossbar. And Kevin, it made this deafening ping noise. And then, if you let me just finish the story, is a little bit more is you know, after the game, I don't know if you ever poured your heart into something and you just feel so exhausted, but you're exhilarated at the same time, and then able to look at your teammates in the eye and be like, hey man, I gave it all out there for you. And then that's kind of where I segue, you know, into life. Like there's something soul satisfying about doing that. And then, but bro, for all of us, there's coming a time when there's going to be a ping, and the game's over, man. Whether you breathe your last breath or God returns, and then you're going to face your Creator, you know, and look Him in the eye. And I pray you can say those words, God, I left it all out there for you. Man, and you hear those words, well done, my good and faithful servant, you know? And so that's kind of my gist of winning in life. And then, you know, we take it from there. You know, I open with the game and then bleed into some other.
I like to take a book out of David Goggins. I do enjoy listening to David Goggins because he's extreme. He's very extreme, and he's definitely not a normal person. But he said something that when I die, there's a board that all those things that you're supposed to accomplish, and you're sitting with God, and He's going over all your accomplishments. And most people in the world, you were supposed to be a fireman. Well, I wasn't a fireman. Yeah, because you screwed up here. You were supposed to do that, and you were supposed to do this. You did this one. You did this one. You did that. The way I took it, and the way I try to live my life is, I want to have. There is that board, and I know this is pie in the sky stuff, and God already knows whatever I'm going to do. I want to put some stuff up there on the board that I wasn't supposed to do. That it was extra good things in this world, not bad things. I've done enough bad things, and dear Lord, they're up there. But I want to put some extras up there on the board to say, oh, you weren't supposed to do that. And I said, I know. I felt compelled to do that. And all those lists of accomplishments are extra and overproduce for God. And I know that's an impossibility, but that's how I'm going to live my life. So when that ping hits and I hear the puck hit the crossbar, I'll make sure I'm not just prepared, I'm over prepared.
Yeah, yeah. Jesus tells a story, I think it's Matthew 25, about the parable of the talents, man. He gives one guy 5 talents, 1, 2, and 1, 1. And man, the 5-talent guy, he rips it, man. He just makes 5 more. Another guy does 2, and he doubles it up as well. And for each of them, it's like, well done, well done, well done. And then it gets to the guy with the 1, and what does he do? He just buries it in the sand. And for the record, I don't know if you're a 5-talent guy, bro. You're a 5-talent guy. Honestly, I'm not doing this to be humble brag. I'm a 1-talent dude, man. But you know that talent in the scripture, it's $1.4 million. Man, God might not have given you a lot, but He's given you something. And so I think it's incumbent upon us with whatever God's given us of our time, our breath, our talents. Man, just go be the best you can be for the glory of God and the good of people, man. And if you do that, man, you're going to hear, well done, well done, well done, you know?
So how I do that, and the reason that I do that is not only for that purpose, but it's also to show my children what is possible. You know, I teach my children very, very systematically that there's always more work to be able to that you can do. You're never done. You know, you're never done until you're done. You know, you played almost 3 full games in this particular game, and it could have gone on longer, but you're not done until you're done. And the pressure as you start going on starts building and building and building for you to not screw up.
Yeah.
You know, you live this great life. Well, you know, the thing about human beings is we eventually are going to screw up.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. And then the hard part is to be able to pick yourself up and get right back on the horse and start again.
Yeah. I mean, that's where even like being a Christ follower has really helped me in that I'd always put so much pressure on myself. But man, I've come to learn that, no, my job is to do the best I can with what God's given me, and the results, that's on Him. Win, lose, draw, whatever, man, the results are in God's hands, and I'm good with that, you know? But God's going to look to me, all right, did you give me everything you had with what I've given you, you know? So I believe in the grind, just like you. There's always more to give, man. Let's go.
I always got a little bit left in the tank.
Yep.
And there's going to be times when you're like, take the gym. So I know you're a big gym guy. So let's take the gym. There are days when you just don't feel like going.
Yeah.
You know, you just don't have it. To me, those are the days that I force myself to go. And if the next day comes and I'm tired, okay, maybe my body needs some rest.
Right.
I get that. But let's jump off that tomorrow, not today.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that today.
Yeah.
And I push myself that way because it's that fine line between being physically tired and being lazy.
Yeah.
And I don't ever want to be known as a lazy person, because as a child, I was called the laziest man alive by my father.
Wow.
And I've lived my life to make sure that I prove that wrong.
Right.
Not for the sake of proving him wrong, for myself.
Yeah.
You know, you hear something enough as a child and you start to believe it.
Yeah. No, 100%, man.
And I don't think too many people who know me can call me lazy.
Yeah. No, not at all. Never. I'm like, does this dude ever sleep?
No, I don't.
Yeah, no, you don't.
I don't. So how hard was it for you to get this book? And I read this book, and I know it includes a lot of the things that you speak about on Sundays, with some extras in there. How hard was it for you to pen this book and get it published and all that stuff?
Probably took me about 9 months to do it, but I think for me, more than I'm more of a curator of stories, you know. So I'm so compelled and captivated when I hear a good story. You know, it kind of reels me in, and so that's what I hope to do in the book is just to be able to, because I know like a lot of people, you know, maybe they're not readers, or now what do they say? Our attention span is that of a goldfish, you know,
Pretty
these days
much.
with all the devices and stuff.
It's
So
about 2 seconds.
so I get it, man. If you're gonna read something, I gotta fight to hold your attention. And so, you know, I try to lean on a lot of compelling stories and whatnot to kind of draw people in. But when I get their attention, man, I just know I want to give them the truth of God's word. And I do really want to see people win in their life. You know, I heard someone say that, man, the worst kind of failure is succeeding at the wrong thing. And I just want to make sure, man, you got your life pointed in the right direction. So at the end of the day, man, you are hitting the bullseye of what God has for your life.
I always like, there was a time in your life where you had all the talent in the world, but it may have been wasted as your draft status goes down. It may have been wasted had you not made a little bit of change, made a little adjustment in your life. And to me, I think there's nothing more tragic, like Bronx Tale says, there's nothing more tragic than wasted talent.
Right.
I burn that into my kids. You know, I said, you're going to see this throughout your whole life. There's going to be people who are way more talented than you, and they're going to squander it, and they're never going to meet their full potential. Where you might not have that talent, but if I put enough work ethic in, you'll be able to beat them every single time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just described my entire hockey career.
Yeah.
So wasn't the most talented guy or anything, but I was just gonna grind. and keep
14
going.
years is a long time. That
Yeah.
is a brutal sport.
Yeah, yeah. I fooled him for a while. I'm paying the price now, though, KD.
Yeah. Every once in a while, I'll see Adam at church, and he'll be walking a little funny, and he's like, "Oh, yes, it's that day I did this in the gym the other day," but it's all workarounds and stuff. And now you're tasked with bringing the word to the New York Jets, and that in and of itself, you transition from one sport to another sport. I think the value for you is not only, your words speak for themselves, but since you're already a professional athlete, do you find that some sort of connection between them?
Yeah, there was 100%. I think there's, can relate to their world and what it takes. And I mean, these NFL guys, NHL guys, you're the top 1% of what you do, man. It's really hard. And it's like, unlike a lot of jobs, you can't have a bad day at the office. If you had a bad day at the office, you're getting cut or, traded or whatever. So I kind of get everything that goes in with that. And so, I think, it's really been a great open door. It was funny how it happened, KD. I had, one of the Jets just showed up. I was pastoring a church in Manhattan. One of the Jets D linemen show up. Dude's like 6'5", 300 pounds. Kenyon Coleman was his name, and great guy. But I asked him what he does, and he's like, he wouldn't tell me. And then after service, he liked the service, so he says, "Man, I play for the Jets," and he's like, "You should be our chaplain." And I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. And then sure, if I got a call. And then one of the coaches invited me out I could try out to be the chaplain. I was like, how do you try out to be a chaplain? And they did straight up like American Idol, bro. Where you
Really?
had to like preach your best sermon thing. And for whatever reason, I got the gig, but we giggle about it to this day, dial in, if you like my sermon,
So I've had the opportunity to go to Jets Chapel, and getting into the Jets facility with my son was difficult. They looked at me very funny because it was during training camp, and it was everything's on lockdown. I get it, but here was the moment. And I don't think you know this moment. I'm sitting in the back with my son, who lives, eats, sleeps, and will die with football. And here comes, and I remember Sauce Gardner walks into chapel, and he goes, "Dad, there's Sauce Gardner." I'm like, "Yeah." And I said, he was instructed. I said, Don't go bother these guys. These guys are here for chapel. Don't do it. Sauce Gardner makes, and this speaks to his personality, and I don't know him other than this. I got to sit back and I watched this whole thing happen. Sauce Gardner makes a beeline for my son. and comes over and gives him a hug, talks to him for a couple minutes. I don't even know what the hell he said to him, but I'm sitting back here, and if you could have seen the look on my face, it was pure contentness. I was the happiest I've ever been watching my son be spoken to like a human being from a professional athlete, a high level professional athlete, and you facilitated that. So I have to give all praise to you on that one.
Yeah, man. Isn't it funny though, Katie? And maybe like I know I've experienced this where, man, the power of our words, bro. Just to, you don't have to be a Sauce Gardner or something to go, man, you speak life over into somebody. Like there is, I literally have voicemails kind of saved on my phone, just, someone who will kind of pump your tires or do something. And I feel ridiculous, man. I'm 56 years old. I shouldn't need that. But you know what, bro? Every now and then, I mean, I just need that encouragement and stuff. And it's just, we all have the power to be able to do that, speak life over into somebody. And I think if we did more of that, man, the world would be a much better place.
Yeah, I talk about that all. So whatever I sign off of any Instagram live, I say two things. Well, I say not today, which I gave you our challenge coin, but I say be good to yourself, and then be good to other people, because that's what makes the world go round.
Amen.
So we're coming to the end of this thing. Where can we get the book?
So it's released.
It'll be released by the time this airs.
By the time we get this out, okay. So it's everywhere bookstores are sold. Or bookstores. I guess bookstores aren't sold, but the books are sold.
Yeah,
in bookstores. Yes. So
there's a couple of them.
Yeah, left. Amazon, Barnes and Nobles. You can go to our website, encnj.org, and you can pick up a copy there as well. So yeah.
And we can find you on social media. You're Pastor Adam Burt. I believe you're Pastor Adam Burt.
I'm horrible at social media, bro. You just outed me. So
I'm telling you, I think I'm almost positive you're Pastor Adam Burt on Instagram.
Yeah, I got to get my daughter. Hey, baby, how do you do this Instagram thing, man? So you're the king.
Getting better at it.
You're the king.
You're getting better at it.
Yeah.
So we are coming to the end of this thing here, and faith is not something that comes easily. It's not something. It takes work. Yeah. It takes work. So, and it takes at times a little bit of sacrifice and suffering. So the suffering of faith that you have gone throughout your life, throughout your career, and throughout your post-career, throughout your pastorship, your chaplain with the Jets, what do you think it's taught you, all this suffering that you had to go through to stay on the path?
So honestly, at least Katie, when I look in the rearview mirror of my life, there's a weird scripture in your book in James where it talks about count it all joy when you walk through various trials. And you think like, what? Why would I count that as joy? But it's amazing. It's how walking through stuff, it definitely produces stuff inside of you. I know, you've had the dark night of the soul that you've walked through. I know for me, I've had 5 back surgeries. I had 3 in 1 year that kind of forced me to retire. And man, that was I had a few kind of heart to hearts with God there. I was like, hey God, I'm the one trying to rep you down here, and the dude that's sleeping around with his, on his wife and stuff like that, he's getting a contract extension, and I got to retire. I've had some moments, but it's so amazing how when I look back, at those seasons and coming through on the other side, it's produced some stuff inside of me, man. I'm a much more compassionate person now because I've walked through a little bit of stuff. I realize that health it's not a right, it's a gift. So I have a lot more gratitude and gratitude for just day-to-day things, and so it produced some stuff in my life. And the wise people in my life, I promise you look at every one of those people, they've been through some stuff, and it's created a wisdom and a depth of soul that it's not something that it's not cheap, but it's worth it.
So one of the people who I admire the most, I won't say his name because I don't think he would want that, but he was the president of an outlaw motorcycle club. Yeah. And he's the most wonderful human being I know. Yeah. He found Jesus and transformed himself into a man who is admirable.
Yeah.
So that's the power of Christ. But so here's the thing I find very interesting about you. I think your professional sports career was a season preparing you for what you're doing now, because I do think that this is what you were meant to do. Yeah. I honestly do.
Yeah. And I agree 100%. And then, whatever's next after this, I believe that, those stages of my life has prepared me for this, for whatever's next. And I believe that for you. I believe, man, you have a destiny and a calling on your life. And so, yeah, 100%. Hey, I got to go back to the biker outlaw guy. So where else can you get a cop and an outlaw biker guy to be together in one church, man, loving God, loving people? I mean, you got to tell me this stuff works, man. So what a cool to see you two next to each other. And I'm like, man, only the Lord could do that stuff.
I say it all the time. You can believe or you cannot believe, but I will testify that this is real and your life will get better. Maybe not better in the way that you want, but definitely better in the way that you need.
Yeah. Well said, man. I couldn't say it any better.
Thank you so much, Pastor Adam. I appreciate you. I always appreciate everything you do for me and everything, all the grace that you've given me.
Awesome, KD. I plan in 2025 to get a tat or something so I could be like you, bro.
And that's going to do it for this episode of the Suffering Podcast, The Suffering of Faith with Adam Burt. And let's think about all the stuff that we learned. Faith is a team sport. Hands in the air isn't as weird as you think it is. See something in everybody. I personally have felt hungry my whole life. Until now, I feel like I'm satisfied. But most importantly, thank God for God. I appreciate you. And that's going to do it for this episode. Don't forget to go to popple.com, put in the code TSP20 for a 20% discount on your digital business card. Follow us on all social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, Clapper, TikTok is back, and of course, OnlyFans. Follow me at Real Kevin Donaldson, and of course, follow the Suffering Podcast, and we'll see you next time.